Hello and welcome to Good Games Well Played, episode 180. I'm Clint, aka JCM. With us this week is Messiah.
Hello.
And unfortunately, Isley got hit by a storm that took out his power. Silent Hill trying to keep us from talking about it, so he won't be able to join us probably.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I know. It's like, and I just finished it too, so it's like last week, he's not there. I'm like, that's fine. I could talk about some stuff and whatever, yada yada. Hopefully, he'll be there on the next one, and the next one shows up and he's not here. He's out looking for his wife who died 3 years ago. But overall, yeah, not a whole lot of news this week. We do have a couple things I bookmarked. One of them being that I saw an article on IGN saying September 2024 sales charts Xbox Series X is finally outselling the Series S. And I thought when I saw the article they meant like just that month this year or something. But I opened it up and look at it, it's like, no, it's like since the launch of the X and the S has been selling out the X or overselling the X by like the entire time the console's been out. And I'm like, it makes sense considering the overall sales of the Xbox consoles aren't doing well compared to Sony this gen and compared to Nintendo. And it's definitely becoming that, like how the Switch was the second console of the PS3 360. I call it Wii 60. That it's like, okay, people are going to get the Xbox Series consoles, they just get the S and they have PC I don't know why you'd have PC, because if you have PC already, then, well, now most of the Xbox games are, but at least from the start, it wasn't like every single Xbox game was on PC.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we'll just get the S. It's the, cheaper console. It doesn't necessarily need all the big bells and whistles, yada, yada. But now, finally, the X outsold it by a slim margin in just 1 month. So, not even like, that's kind of crazy. I'm curious. Okay, it looks like they did talk to Matt. Oh, they just had some other details in there, but it doesn't really matter. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. I'm curious what the overall sales numbers are and what the split is. I think there had been discussion or at least speculation about this split. I remember like back when the consoles were first out, it was kind of tough to get them because the supply chain. It'd always be like, oh hey, it seemed like those consoles were always available. It's like, well, is it? They can't be available because they're making them because there's supply chain issues because of COVID. It's like they're there because no one's buying them. And so it's like, but obviously, they're not looking at every single store across the country. It just seems like, oh, people take pictures like, look, there's a bunch of them here at Target. Where I'm at, it's like, oh, well, if you live in, the boonies or something, there probably would be some there. Probably, depending on where, the gamers are. Like, let's check the densely populated areas, see how that, because that'll be a better indicator because at least there's more people in those spots. But yeah, it's pretty much. I mean, I imagine they expect it, but we've heard and talked about in previous podcasts of developers that say they kind of dislike the S only in the sense that it's having that low floor you have to hit, especially on the Xbox consoles, can be kind of a pain. I mean, look, that's one of the reasons why, they didn't officially say it, but that's one of the reasons why Baldur's Gate 3 didn't come out on Xbox right away, because they were having trouble getting it to work with, on feature parity between the S and the X, and they ended up, saying, oh, you don't have to worry about that eventually, just to get that on there, because it's like, don't want to miss out on those sales. But yeah, it's I didn't realize it was so. I mean, I guess it makes sense, if the PS5 is selling so well, people aren't going to need to buy the X. I mean, they would if it was the only Xbox console, but it's like you give two, it's like they're going to buy the lower one. Plus, it's like when you've talked about it before, like they pitched it as that, hey, it has a smaller hard drive, but they do have those expansion drives. It's like, just get Game Pass. It could be a great gift for, the kids or younger gamers, someone getting in who's, maybe they got their first job. It's like a cheaper console that they can buy. Sure, it's all digital, but they're probably fine with that. And then, yeah, it's just, it's the perfect market for them. It's like, hey, how are we going to save and still get this? Or maybe you want to get multiple, like, I have a PS5, but it's like, oh, if my kid wanted to play a PS5 game, so I'll just let him play this. Whereas, like, I had multiple PS4s, or even like the PS2 was out, I had multiple PS2s eventually. I had the fat and the slim, and it's like I wouldn't probably buy another PS5 just to have an extra one. It's like, I mean, well, maybe down the line, but it's like if they had like, hey, here's a one that's not quite as powerful, but it can still play the same games and stuff, and it's only a couple $100. Like, yeah, then I'll just get that one. And then he can play on that, still play the same games, and he doesn't care about, I'm not putting a 4K TV in his bedroom. So it's, good to go. But interesting article nonetheless. And then the other bit of news that I saw so I don't remember if we talked about this. I think we might have on a previous episode, but we did. I think for a moment, like the Kickstarter that the day before devs started, they came back Fntastic and they did a Kickstarter for their next game. Obviously the day before was a huge disaster. Lots of accusations over it being just like, a scam, this and that, yada yada, and everything, ripping off other people's trailers, this and that. Like, it's all there you look at. But they announced a Kickstarter, and then the Kickstarter was failing. They only raised a couple $100 out of a $20,000 target. So they canceled it. They announced they're canceling it, and in the same breath, they said they're working on another game. So like, okay, well, we see, people aren't really so, here's the exact quote. Our campaign on Kickstarter is unlikely to reach our goal. They did $3,000 out of the 20,000. After careful analysis and discussion with the team, we have decided that our Escape Factory project, which was essentially a prop hunt game, has not generated enough interest. With this in mind, we have decided to temporarily suspend work on Escape Factory and postpone it until a more appropriate time. And they now said they are allegedly working on Items. Oh, that Items is the action horror prop hunt game. Sorry. The other one was a different game. Your wishes are very important to us. This is exactly what many of you have been waiting for. Because I believe one of their earlier games they did was also a prop hunt style game. So now they're working on another one. It's like, really? Is this what people are really wishing for from you? How about delivering your promises on the day before? I think that's what people would want. But it's just so weird that in the same announcement that you're canceling a failing Kickstarter, you're going to be working on something else. Like, okay, sure, whatever. Weird company, man. Like, I'm surprised we laughed about it. Like, launching the Kickstarter was such a weird move to begin with. But
also, it's like nobody's going to buy into that.
Yeah,
nobody's going to put any faith in your Kickstarter if you're just going to like not deliver. I mean, I guess it's okay because they're not actually running off with anybody's money, but you've never delivered anything. So why is anybody going to commit to your Kickstarter if not out of just sheer morbid curiosity?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, man. We'll see what happens. And then the last bit of news is that, so I guess there was a patch recently for Silent Hill 2 that was causing people to get hard locked in the game, where like a puzzle in the labyrinth sections, kind of spoilers for a later part of the game, like would prevent them from progressing. And I don't remember where I was. Like, I didn't run into this, but I was kind of in that section, I think, when that patch did go live, but maybe I got past it far enough where it didn't affect me. But that had been a big problem for people, where like they couldn't progress any further. And they just released a patch this week saying that, with the 1.05 update, it fixed the progress breaking bug. So now people can go in and, get past it. I don't know specifically which puzzle it was. They don't list it in here. But yeah, they're just saying like, hey, there's, I guess you have to, that cube that you move, that you rotate, I guess there was a problem with that. So then I look, but hey, it's fixed now, so people can get in there. So I'm really curious what it was. Because again, I did play in that section after the 1.04 update, which is what caused it. So, but good to see. Glad they fixed it. Seems like they got on it pretty quick. But yeah, because I guess the only thing you do is if you had it on disc, you just have to delete the game, reinstall it, and play offline, since you can't roll back the firmware updates on console. But I'm surprised they didn't just roll it back. I feel like Baldur's Gate does that, where like whenever they push an update, granted, typically they push the updates out first on PC, but like they roll back updates. I wonder if they can do that on the PSN, like if Sony allows firmware update rollbacks.
I was going to say you can do that on PC, but I don't know if you can do that on console because it's like a whole different thing.
I think they might, like maybe just like ping server, delete, update, download download previous, update -1 or whatever. Like, because I think they've done that on console. I feel like it was a thing, but because it seems like such an easy temp fix. Like, hey, we got to go ahead and do this. Because especially if it's like something, it's like, okay, you do it, but again, I was in that section. I didn't run into any problems, but other people did. So it's like, okay, what factors kind of lead into that, and how do you QA that kind of thing? But yeah, so yeah, that's good. But yeah, other than that, again, not a whole lot of news this week. It's been pretty quiet. Not a lot happening. So
I'll take that over like mass layoffs and that kind of news. So
or news that the Microsoft CEO is getting like a $30 million pay increase or whatever. And fuck off, man. What the fuck? It's so fucking bullshit. Like, really? What did you do?
He laid off a bunch of people and saved the company a bunch of money.
That's right. My GMI project is that we should scale down. We have a lot of job redundancy and yada yada yada, and
Mm-hmm.
this game's not performing as expected.
Shut
But
up.
yeah, it's so fucking stupid. It's like whatever. I don't know how you can. Yeah, they're just disconnected from everything. Like they're fucking going on. They're not going on Twitter and Reddit. They don't give a shit. But anyway, all right. Well, I guess we can just go ahead and jump straight into what we've been playing. Haven't been, like I said, not a whole lot of news, so we can just get kind of right into it.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen you. I haven't really been paying attention too much to Discord to see what we're playing. But if you've what have you been playing this past week?
I played Mother 3 all week.
That's right. That's right. That's what you were playing last week. Yeah.
Yeah. My boss was gone on vacation this past week, and I totally did work. I did my things that I was supposed to do, but I also sat at my desk and just played Mother 3 all week. So that's the only reason I beat it on Thursday. It's just because I played it all week. I spent about 24 hours, I think was my final count on my save file. So not like huge, but substantial enough to be like long and enjoyable, but not too long.
Were you familiar with the story at all? Like from all the years of being out,
No.
maybe watching? Okay, at all. So
I had no idea about. Well, I knew about like some things. Like I knew the Mr. Saturns were in it. But it was just Mr. Saturns are my favorite part of the like Mother series, so I was still excited to see them. But as far as like the villain and the ending and things that happen in the story, I didn't really have any idea because I knew I was going to play it eventually, so I never really like looked into it very deeply.
Yeah. So did it live up to the? I didn't say like live up to hype, but like, did you enjoy it for the fact like it's such a talked about game? I feel like, but it's also from like way back. I mean, it's similar to like Silent Hill 2, one I'm going to talk about in a bit. But did it meet expectations or at least enjoyable through the whole journey?
Oh, absolutely. It was
Okay.
so good. The thing that surprised me though is it's very dark. The story is so dark. And it's like it starts really bad and then it kind of picks up a little bit. It's like okay, the worst of it's over. Obviously the ending is going to be a little emotional because of what's happened, but it picks up a little bit and then the third chapter is again horribly depressing and then kind of picks up a little bit after that, and then when you get to the last I would say the last two chapters, it is really when it starts to build up on the typical Mother series like weirdness and kind of like epic it's like plot of it all. And then the ending was just horribly dark and just really depressing. I was like, this is very different from Earthbound. And I don't remember Mother 1 being that horribly depressing either, but it was just like shocking more than anything. I was like, oh, good God. It's also shocking that this was originally supposed to be Earthbound 64. And so, like, you're trying to picture this story, but in like Nintendo 64 graphics. And it's like, I don't know, man. I guess there was a reason they scrapped that project and went with the Earthbound aesthetic. But
That's funny.
there's a lot of things in there where I had the realization, like, yep, this is not ever going to be localized. There are like massive plot points that they would have to either censor or rewrite. I was like, oh, this is never getting the Earthbound treatment. Even Mother 1 was eventually localized and put on the virtual console on Switch Online, but it's like, no, this is just not going to happen. But it's fine because the fan translation is out there, so it's like it's accessible. Like it's very easily accessible, and you don't need like a retro handheld to play it. Obviously, you can play it on PC, but it's out there and it's accessible. And they did a fantastic job at like all the work that has to go into it. But the game itself is so good. I don't know if I like it more than Earthbound, just because I think Earthbound was like my first, obviously, intro to the series as like a Western game player. But it's very, very, very good.
Yeah, I wonder if there's any instances of like, we always hear about fan translations, and usually it's only when there's like subtitles. But I wonder if there's ever a game like, imagine if like FF10 only released in Japan and there was no English track, and so it's like, oh, we did a fan translation of it for the subtitles. But like, what if there's like a fan translation of the actual VO, like of a game like that? Like, I wonder if that exists, because I feel like that probably is the case of most games that by the time games had voiceover, they probably were, well, maybe not all, but I feel like they would have been localized in other regions.
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe
I don't know. It's it's not as easy as like just going into the game and replacing like a text file or anything
Right,
like that.
yeah.
It's like, especially with the Game Boy Advance game, you have to go in and change like core parts of the game and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So it's like, even something like that, I don't know if you could even replace the VO tracks. I guess you would just have to subtitle them.
Yeah, I guess the only way you could do it is if like if a game had like for the going back to FF10, all of the rendered videos, if you were to like capture them like with whatever capture card at the time or even a current day capture card and then just try to dub over it that way, but like it wouldn't really work that well because you'd have to like mute all the audio around it because you wouldn't have separate audio tracks, but
Hmm.
yeah, I guess that wouldn't be the case, but that would be interesting if there was something like it, just amateur, voice actors out there just being like, hey, or they're just fans and they just like, I want to just do the VO because there's no English VO for this. Let's if they can figure out on the programming side how to get it to work, that would be interesting. But
That's an interesting thought because there are voiced over games that have really, like older games that have released in Japan that never got localized for one reason or another. Like it was never popular enough or anything like that. But I mean, even the Yakuza series has English voiceover, even though nobody ever uses it. Nobody that I've seen play anyway. But yeah, that's interesting. If there's a way to even do that. I mean, even just considering the work that had to go into localizing a Game Boy Advance game,
right,
there's a very good book, the Legends of Localization series. They did a whole book with the main like fan localizer. He goes by Tomato. Um, I really want to get that book and read it because just like the little tidbits and like quotes that I've read from it are super interesting. Just from like not even just a like game preservation standpoint, but from like a game dev standpoint too. Because he's basically a game dev at this point. Like he didn't make the game, but he might as well have the work that
yeah,
had to go into it. So I really want to get that book and read it. It's super good. But it's a very, very good translation. I didn't have any issues with it. The only issue that I have was because I'm stupid and I don't know how to use a ROM, so I lost my original save file and had to start over because I'm
uh-oh,
dumb. But I wasn't that far in at the time. It didn't take very long to get back up to that point that I was at.
oh, okay,
But it's very, very good. If anybody is ever like interested in the game itself, it also has a very unique combat system. It's very similar. Obviously, it's very similar to the other games, and it's really, really similar to Earthbound specifically with the rolling HP meter. Um, but it's also rhythm based. So you don't necessarily need it, but I highly recommend it, especially for the latter half of the game. But every fight basically has its own theme song and its own beat, and you can do like extra damage with each of the characters with just their base attacks if you follow the rhythm of the song. So it's kind of like there's a mechanic in the game that allows you to hear what the rhythm is, but sometimes it doesn't always work. So it's kind of like a little puzzle with certain fights, like trying to figure out what the rhythm to follow is to do extra damage. So it's really, really neat. I highly, highly, highly recommend it, obviously. It's kind of legendary in the retro game scene for a reason.
yeah, yeah. It definitely feels like one of those games. It's like of that era, I suppose. I feel like it's the one that's most talked about
Hmm.
as far as wanting it to be. They always talk about like, oh, this is the remake I'd like, or I'd like this game to be here, bring this game back. It's like that's like feels like that's the foundation for which all the other ones are built on. It's like this is the game.
There's definitely a reason that it's kind of a niche meme in the Nintendo community that people are always like, hey, when are you going to localize Mother 3? And it's like, well, when you play it, you realize why they don't do that, first of all. Like, there's just too much, considering what they censored in Earthbound specifically, there's just way too much. There's, like I said, there's core parts of the story that would have to be very gently censored around and stuff like that. But it doesn't stop people from asking for it. Like, when you just localize it as is, put a mature rating on it, and release like a physical copy as like a collector's item or something like that. Like I get that, but it's definitely going to be an investment on Nintendo's part because there's no way they can market it like they marketed Earthbound as like a children's kind of like young adult game. There's no way.
So now that you finished Mother 3, do you have anything else that you like on your list?
Um, I was really in the Game Boy Advance mood, obviously. It's an era of gaming that I missed because I never had a Game Boy Advance. So I've been playing Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. But I am kind of almost done with that. After that, I don't really know what I'm going to pick up. I have some Switch games. There is a game called Omori, that a lot of people compare to Mother 3, just in like kind of the vibe of it and the overall story and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, well, obviously this game is horribly dark, so I don't know if I want to jump into that right away. But maybe the little palette cleanser of Kirby in between would be good. So I'd really like to check out Omori, but I do have Switch games that I haven't played yet, so I might pick one of those. I have either I Am Setsuna or Alliance Alive, which I've been wanting to play for a really long time, so I might pick that up. But that's another like really long RPG, so it'll take me a while to get through that because I don't think I'll have another week of work freedom to just play video games at work.
Yeah, I finished up Silent Hill 2. Now I forget how far I was when we talked about it last week. Because I remember.
I don't remember because I think I watched you play it after too, and I don't remember where you were when we recorded.
Yeah, so I can't quite recall. I think maybe I was in the prison. I know I talked about the prison because I was like, oh, the lights turn on. I thought maybe it'd be like a boss that you have to turn the lights on to make them not come after you, yada yada, this and that. But then I talked about the judgment thing with the pulling the ropes. I think maybe I fought the dude in the slaughterhouse. But anyways, so I finished up Silent Hill 2. When I beat it, I was like, I got the leave ending. It was funny because there's like, when I did the final fight, there's like, you down the boss, and then it cuts to like gameplay, back to the gameplay, and like you can like walk up to the boss. But I just pulled up my gun and shot them again because I was in my head, I was like, oh, Zombieland double tap. So I just shoot them once with the pistol, which triggers the cutscene. I was like, oh, I wonder maybe they're supposed to say something, and you're supposed to be like James, don't do it. And then it's like a Last of Us or Naked Snake, the boss situation where you have to pull the trigger and it's supposed to be like really emotional. But I'm just like, nah, I just shoot you and it triggers the cutscene. But I got the leave ending, and then I have all of my VODs scheduled. It's funny, I was scheduling working on the VODs this weekend, like editing out anytime I had to go AFK on stream, yada yada, this and that. Mm-hmm. And now I have like all my VODs scheduled, and it's so weird to like have videos scheduled on YouTube to go out. But yeah, it also feels really weird to like play a game where none of the enemies drop anything. It's like, it's so odd to like kill someone. Not even the bosses. Like, it's like you kill a boss and it's like, oh, here's the item you're looking for. It's like, it's just nobody drops anything, and it's so weird. Like you just find all the stuff. You don't pick up ammo. But after I beat it, I sat on it for a bit, talked about the end stream for like, because I think someone was there I was talking to. I was talking with Chad about the game and this and that. And then when I was done, I watched all the endings. Plus, I guess there was 2 new endings that they added, which are just kind of like, it's the same. One of them essentially is just the same ending. One of the same endings, just mildly, just a little bit different. And the other one's like
different outcome.
Yeah, well, same, kind of same outcome, but like different. It's the lake one,
the
where
water
like
ending,
the water ending. Yeah, except it's like instead of him being alone in the car, he sees Mary in the car with him, and then it like cuts to black, but it's still like, I think it still makes it sound like he crashed into the water. And then the other one is like when he watches like the VHS tape, it's instead of seeing anything bad, it carries on like happy. It's called the bliss ending. And it's like there's that one, and then what did I forget that? But anyways, it doesn't matter. And I watched like the UFO and the dog one. I'm like, okay, these are just goofy endings, of course.
I like what they did with the UFO one in the remake, though. It's very good.
Yeah, it's very like, oh hey, look, it's the old school model.
I'm you, but older and less detailed.
Yeah, and it's also like stop motion. I'm like, was it all stop motion like that in the?
It was, yeah.
Okay. But when I watched so I had like kind of an idea, like, okay, this explains like, he always talks about wife dying 3 years ago, but how could she have died if she got a letter from her a week ago? Yada yada yada, telling them to come to Silent Hill. But then it's like the letter's not real, and it's blank and stuff. When you end up talking to, was it Laura, the little girl?
Yeah.
Yeah, who I still hate through the entire thing. And then it's like, okay, and then you kind of figure out what's really going on, and I was like, all right, that's fine. And then when I watched the Maria end, that was where I was like, okay. And I watched that as part of the endings, and I slept on it. the next morning, and it's like I liked it more because I saw the other ending. Because I like the idea. Like my only problem with Silent Hill from a story, I have gameplay issues with it too. But like from the story is like it takes so long for the pieces to fit that like it's too much. And I'm like it should be because it's so singular in what he's doing. There's not a lot of like because typically most things like there's an overarching story like this is the goal. The overarching find my wife. She sent me a letter. And usually that's like little things that happen between that push the story or build the universe, get them out. And like I don't feel like there's enough of that in there to really like make it feel like it's expanding. If that makes sense.
The pacing is definitely different than there's not as many like little hints and tidbits and little bits along the way. They're more like chunked out in story compared to the original.
Yeah, and pacing from a gameplay perspective is also really weird. There's too many enemies. They got to cut it out. And there was like a huge section at the end there where like there were no enemies at all. But like I do like the story in the end because everything kind of ties back on itself. Where it's like, oh, you know, my wife died 3 years ago, but she didn't die. And it's like, no, she didn't die 3 years. She got sick, and then to him, she died because she was no longer, you know, she had an expiration date essentially at that point. She was no longer his wife because she got sick, and then she also got really decroded. I don't know how quickly she got decroded, you know, over time, but she talks about like in the he talks to like that version of her right before she dies. And he says like I hated you. And it's like I love that idea of like it's the till death do us part for better or for worse. And it's like and he couldn't do it. Like he couldn't do the for worse bit. Like it's because I think about that a lot, like, you know, whenever I see like you know, kids with not kids, but like if you know families dealing with, you know, either children who were injured in an accident or something, like, you know, a major change in the life of that, you know, a loved one and having to deal with that. I'm like, that takes so much strength to be able to, you know, like the Superman movie that's coming out about Christopher Reeves, Superman.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, you know, and they talk about it in there. His kids are like, you know, I felt bad for my mom, you know, even though she still loved him. It's like, it's her life changed as well. Like how much it impacts her, even though she's stuck by his side the whole time. Like, yeah, it's like your life is, you can no longer, you know, love that person the way you used to. Like, not like in purely an emotional sense, but like, you know, they talk about like, you know, they're just, the relationship's entirely changed. And it's got to be like, you have to be so strong to deal with that. And it's like, and just James wasn't. And he's like, he couldn't deal with it. And I think that's like a really interesting thing. Cause like, yeah, that's probably what, you know, a lot of people, I'd say a majority of folks probably would be like it'd be tough, especially if it's not like a short sickness where it's like, oh, you only get 2 months to live. It's like, no, you're down, but it's like, it's going to be a while. And it's like, man, it's like, but you don't want to be that asshole that just like, you know, up and leaves. So it's like, and you know, him saying, no, I hated you. I hated because that how much his life changed. And like, that's why his wife died to him 3 years ago. That's when she got to, but she was really alive the whole time. So it's that guilt of that hate and wanting her just to be gone and to be over with. I really liked. And then what I liked about the Maria ending is that he leaves with her from Silent Hill. And right before they get in the car, she coughs. And he goes, you should get that looked at. Which ties back to his wife being sick and him not being able to deal with it. I'm like, he's just repeating the cycle. And like,
yeah, he didn't learn anything in Silent Hill.
Yeah, and Silent Hill is gonna do this to him. It's like, I don't know if you ever seen that Jake Gyllenhaal movie, Enemy. Probably not. I don't think so. You wouldn't be able to watch that. There's some buggies in it. But like, there's a theme in that of like Jake Gyllenhaal's character is, you're not sure if he's like, there's someone that looks just like him, another person. I forget their names. We'll call them like Jake and John. I forget the character names, but it's like John's like married with his wife, and then Jake is like this actor, and I might have some of those verse, but anyways, one of them sees a movie where they're in, and he's like, oh, what the hell, this guy looks just like me, and so Jake Gyllenhaal's looking for the guy that looks just like him, and they find him, they confront each other, so you think, okay, they must be real individuals, and then it's more like a psychological thriller thing where it's like, no, he's the same person because he has a wedding ring, like a mark on his finger from, you know, like his skin's a little lighter there. So it's like more of like a split personality kind of thing for infidelity specifically. And so like there's this like bug becomes like the theme of that infidelity. Anyways. And so it's kind of like because there's a scene at the end where like one of them dies, the one who's constantly having an affair, like, looks like they die in a car accident. Think like, oh, you're just left with this Jake that's gonna like, be fine and not cheat on his wife. And then so they're talking about like they're about to go out somewhere, and then you see him, I forget what triggers it. Oh, he gets an invitation or a text message to go to this like sex show that's from the start of the movie, which is part of that infidelity. And then he asks his wife, like, hey, do you want to, like, we postpone or something like that, this and that. And like the way it ends, it's like, it's clearly you didn't change.
Yeah, you didn't learn anything from this like horrible psychological experience.
Yeah. And so I love that about this, because it's very much like Enemy, where it's like you're just gonna repeat the cycle, man. She's gonna cough, and Silent Hill's gonna make her get sick, just like your wife did. Like, you're just gonna get punished again because you didn't learn anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that. And then I am curious about I forget her name. The woman who's looking for her mom.
Angela.
Angela, that's her name. Okay, so my assumption there was that she killed her abusive father in a fire. That's why she sees everything on fire. And that's why he's like melted into the door, because I guess he's trying to escape, but he can't. But did her mother die as a result of that? And so that's why she's looking for her mom, and that's her guilt, is that she killed her mom while killing her abuser. And that's
I don't
why...
know if it's ever explicitly like, or what like the prevailing theories are, but the thing that I always got from it was she was looking for her mom because her mom is supposed to like protect her, kind of thing, and she always thought of her mom as like, this is happening from my dad, so I need to go to my mom, she'll protect me and stuff like that. And she's looking for that like maternal protection, but at the end you find out that her mom was abusive too and told her that she deserved it and everything like that. So I think the theory is that pushed her to kill both of them in like a fire or whatever, but people also think that the fire may just represent the fact that she thinks she's in hell, kind of thing. So there's a lot of kind of like interpretation left to it. But yeah, she's looking for her mom because she wants like protection, but then she realizes like, oh, my mom is in here, she's not going to protect me because she's just as awful.
Okay, yeah, I guess I must have just missed that in that final dialogue you have where she's going up the stairs, because she just like commits to going up the stairs and she's gone forever. And
yeah,
like,
she says something like,
this is what it looks
my
like
mom was right, I deserved it, or something like that, or just something along those lines.
Because it was weird, because like when you do the prison puzzle, and I don't know if it was different in the original one, but like in the prison puzzle, there's like that section where you're judging the 6 stories and like who was in the right to kill, and like the person who killed their abuser was the right one. So I'm like, by that logic, I mean, I don't know if because that's also like in the real world, you're not in like the upside down Silent Hill when you do that puzzle. So I'm like, but if this is Silent Hill presenting this puzzle to me, I'm like, then she's in the right, right? Like,
that's she's definitely in the right, but I think it's a guilt thing. Like, she thinks that she deserves to be there.
Oh, okay. So she right, because her mom says she deserved it. She just believes she deserves it, and that's why she's being pulled back, because it's like, oh, well, if you believe it, then come here. We'll
it's the theory that like she can't leave Silent Hill because she doesn't believe that she can.
Okay.
Because she was basically gaslit by both of her parents to believe that she's awful.
Yeah. Yeah, and the what's his name one? I'm totally blanking on his name now, who you fight, like where he
Eddie.
killed Eddie. Yeah, like, okay, so you killed a dog, and then you killed the guy that witnessed you killing a dog, and now you're here? Like, that seems, I mean, yeah, it's bad, but I'm like, Silent Hill really called you? Like, it just seemed like that's like a weird one for me. Like, it didn't seem like there was enough. I guess, yeah, he does talk about being called fat. I'm like, yeah, I guess, like, if you're bullied, but you're also like a grown man. Like, I suppose. So his felt a little weird being there, I guess. But
yeah, his is like, okay, well, you deserve to be here and be punished, but also you're supposed to be learning a lesson from all of this, and you end up not learning the lesson, so that's why you have to like kill him and fight him. He's like, yeah, actually, I am a bad person, and I deserve to be here, and I don't know, it's just weird.
Yeah, I guess, like, why would you call him here unless you expect him to fight other people who were actually there, and then yada yada. It's like, and I can forgive Laura a little bit because she didn't see all the monsters because she's not she's not affected by Silent Hill. She just was there at the hospital with Mary, but I still hate the little kid. So fuck you. I did think it was weird that the final boss was just the cage monster again. Like that was kind of weird. I was like, okay, I guess.
Basically, yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, that was a little odd, but yeah, I mean, I like the themes and stuff overall, and like, but once it finally all hits, like the journey there was a little rough sometimes. Some of the puzzles were fun. It was the labyrinth area was weird because it was like there was one ladder I didn't go up, and I just progressed through the game. I was like, wait, I didn't go up the ladder. And traditionally, like, yeah, there are side rooms in like the hotels and the residential buildings, whatnot, that you can go in that are technically quote unquote optional. But it was weird. Like I didn't expect that from like a labyrinth to have an optional path where I missed it and I couldn't go back. I was like, what was up there? So I went back and watched like a walkthrough, and it's like, oh, it was just like some ammo that you can go up and get and yada yada. It's like it didn't matter, but it was so weird that at that point, for something that felt so linear, there was like an optional pathway that you could go up that I just didn't. So that was kind of weird. Yeah, I enjoyed it overall, like I said, and I like the story more. Again, because I watched both endings. I feel like if I only got one ending or the other, it wouldn't be like, especially because I felt like the Leave ending tells you way more to work with between Mary, the relationship between Mary and James, and her being sick. And then because when I looked at when he watches that VHS tape and it cuts to him smothering her, I was like, oh, so did he must have killed her recently, like came and visit and like put her out of her misery. Because they have that bit when they chat where she's like, I'm sorry you have to see me like this. I really wish it was over. I'm like, okay, so for a bit there I thought, oh, is the guilt that you came and you put her out of her, euthanasia, but you take her out, but she's fine with it, but you still feel kind of guilty about it. And then like it seems like, okay, maybe no, that was just an image of what he wanted to do. And he just, because she has that, and he says, "Oh, the doctors say I can leave and come visit for a bit, but I'm worried that you'll feel this way about me." It sounds like you didn't send for her or arrange any pickup, drop off stuff, and she just stayed there, and then she died before she could, or what have you. And it's like you just kind of ignored your wife eventually, and just thought, nah, she's dead to me.
Yeah, like a neglect kind of thing. And then once he finds out she's dead, he's like guilty about it.
Yeah, and he doesn't like yeah, he doesn't accept that she died recently, and that's how he gets stuck in that 3 years ago thing. Yeah, so like I like that, but again, because I watched the quote unquote bad ending, I guess you call it, with the Maria, it's like that kind of like, okay, it's the other piece of that puzzle that makes me appreciate it more. But yeah, I enjoyed it overall. Just again, some weird pacing. Some of the puzzles were weird. Too many monsters for sure. And it's so annoying. I found out later that you could turn off the radio because there's a trophy to turn off. And I was like, God damn it! I was like, I wish because I thought when you pick it up, it's like it triggers an event. Like you have to pick it up because I think he sees it like in a cuts, or like you hear it and you go near it, and I think it triggers a cutscene where he picks it up. Or something. And so I thought like, oh, it's mandatory, because I thought, well, how do you not use it if there's a trophy? You just don't pick it up, and is like, I just turn it off. It's like, God damn it! Like, I wish I knew that,
because that was like one of the things that kind of took it out for you, huh?
Yeah, just knowing that like, oh, now granted, they also were really loud, like the bugs clicking are really loud. The nurses are super loud, and that's the other thing too. I really like that because I went back and watched like because I feel like the nurses were in the first one. So I went back and watched the first game, or like I watched someone do like they played the first game recently and they recapped the story, but the nurses weren't as decrepit. So I love the idea that the monsters and the nurses are all gross because his wife was gross. Not to be mean, but like she was dying, and he didn't like that about her, like how she had decayed so much. Essentially, I'm using like brutal language talking about this, but it's like just to get the point across. Like she's decaying, and all these monsters
like how she did when she died is like his kind of thing.
Because the nervous are like they're coughing up stuff, and then it's like, and the pyramid head is just that part of him that wants to get rid of that because it's always killing those things and like get rid of the impurity. That's why like all the arms are scared of it in the labyrinth, because it's like, oh shit, it's that thing that's gonna take us out. It's like, James, you gotta come to your senses, yada yada. But yeah, so I like that, and like that's why the building's so run down in the Upside Down. all the buildings are. All the monsters are always spitting up bile and shit on you. It's like because you're scared of your wife, man. But so I thought that
These
was pretty
things are
cool.
gross because you think they're gross.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's all in your head. It's like an it situation. Just you're little, you're small, you're a clown. But so yeah, I really liked I liked it overall. I do love that they have and they have like a stat thing at the end where they show you like, oh, what your how long it took you to beat the game, yada yada, this and that. And I'm like, and one of the stats was, hey, how many times you open the map. And I feel like the meme of the game is like how often people open the maps. But I haven't seen anybody post on Twitter how many times they open the map. And I'm like, and I looked at the trophies and I'm like, the Leave ending had like a 15% completion on PlayStation. And the Stay or Maria ending had, I think about, or so it was that or the Water. One of them had 10% and the other one had like 5%. I'm like, okay, so there's a chance it's 30, but there could be like repeat plays for trophy hunters who are like, oh, I'm doing New Game Plus, yada yada. So I'm like, it seems like it could potentially have a pretty high percentage of completion for players. I'm surprised I haven't seen it because, like I said, I was looking at my thing here. It's like, oh, it took me like 17 hours. I tried to open locked doors 326 times because you got to try every door. I checked the map 987 times. I don't know if that's a lot, but if we did this, we do. That's almost once every minute. So 17 hours. That's 1,020 minutes plus the 1 minute. So that 1,021 divided by 987. That's a 1.03 times a minute. So it's like essentially once a minute I'm opening up my map, which seems about right. There were some sections where I didn't know, like I learned an area for pretty well. So like, oh, I know where this is. Like once you get to that like island resort place at the end, I'm like, okay, I kind of know this place really good. I don't have to open up as much.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I like that there's those stats. And then also it's like the other thing just like, oh, it's like total enemies killed 351, enemies killed by shooting 76, killed by fighting 275. It's like favorite weapon still pipe. I'm like, yeah, because the melee's so strong in this game, man. It's like the melee's super strong and the dodge is really effective too once you get it down the wonkiness of it. Like yeah, number of windows destroyed 135. I died 3 times, but number of dodges performed 893. So I like that they do these stats here. I thought that was fun, but I'm just surprised no one's posted the check the map stat more often. But yeah, I liked it. And then after I finished that, I was like, okay, I didn't know what to play. I started playing Dead Island 2 because I kind of wanted to play something like more shooty. I really wanted to play like Apex or something like that, but I was like, I don't have anybody to play it with, so I don't want to hop in that, play with randos because I haven't played in multiple seasons. And then I was like, well, I'll play Dead Island because it's free on PS Plus Extra. But I started playing it, I'm like, the tutorial took way too long to get through. And also it's like, it's way more melee and then less gun. Like there might be some guns in the game later, but also it's not quite as open world. It's kind of like open sections of the map that you go to. And then I played it for like, I don't know, like an hour and a half, maybe. And then I was like, okay, this is, whatever. But I started playing Tiny Tina's Wonderlands with my cousin again. Or rather, I played it again, but with my cousin now. I only got a little ways through it when I first started playing a while ago when it was part of like I think it was either part of PlayStation Plus or it was like on sale for like $1 or something. But we've been playing that, but it's hard to link up times on that one. So I was like, he couldn't get on. It's like, oh, I gotta play something else. But
Adulthood.
And then playing Dead Island is just like, I'm like, man, I like Dying Light better. Like the parkour aspect of it so much good. And I wish Isley was able to get on more often because then we were so late. He was so late Dying Light 2, and I was gonna play with him co-op because I thought that'd be really fun to replay that in co-op. But I ended up Carrion went on sale on the PlayStation Store. I think it's like $4 or something like that. You got like a PS Plus discount on it. And that's a game I've been interested in playing. It's the one that came out on Switch back in like 2018, I think, and then eventually came to other platforms. And it's like you play a monster that escapes containment. It's a side scroller, and you go around like killing people and like expanding. So it's pretty fun. It's like an inverse horror game, but there's no map, and that's like the only thing. Is like, why would the monster have a map? So like you're just exploring the facility, and which isn't too bad when it's like it's got like Metroidvania aspects of it. So it's like, oh, there's obstacles you can't get past until you upgrade to make yourself bigger, which gives you access to new abilities, and you also unlock new abilities, yada yada. Like, oh, you can rip stuff off the walls, and it's like when you're the second tier size of monster, and it's like, okay, now I know I have to go back and I can destroy these barricades that blocked me previously. But then it's like, because there's no map, I was like, crap, where was that one wooden barricade that blocked my path that I gotta go back and find? And I like spent so long that first night I streamed it, like looking for that one wall, like trying to find it. It was so obnoxious.
Not a Metrovania without a map.
And then the other thing too is like they do have give you the ability to like do like a psionic, like basically like a psychic scan. Because what you do, like each new area you get into, each zone has like you have the objective is to find these places where you can breach the wall and spread the monster, and you have to do it like twice in each zone, which then, or for the most part, and it's like the door to the next zone is locked. So every time you breach the wall, it'd be like, oh, there's like a 3 slices of pizza on the door, and like every time you breach a wall, the tentacles go through and they pull that part of the door open. So it's like, okay, you do that 2 more times. And you can actually scan and see, like, okay, where am I missing? And you get like this monster reverb feedback thing on the screen that shows you, like, oh, it's this. You got to go, whatever you're looking for, it's in this direction. So that's helpful. But once I eventually got to this point where I was playing the second night and I got really far and I had a door that's like, I needed 6 slices to open in order to get through it. And I was like, oh, I'll call it here. And then I changed my mind. I was like, nah, actually, I'm going to keep playing. So I kept playing, and then, which was a bad idea, because then I played and progressed, but then I got to the part, unbeknownst to myself, where I essentially would loop back around to the beginning of the game, which, because of my abilities, allows me to get access to areas you couldn't when you started off. But I didn't know that at the time. So when I quit and I got back in, I was just like, okay, what do I do? And I just ran around the map like looking for shit to do. I was like, where do I go? Like, I couldn't figure out for the life of me what to do. And I kept finding like miscellaneous little, they have like these bonus puzzles you can do to like expand your monster DNA. They just essentially give you increases like fire resistance or other stuff and whatever you can do. Like little challenge puzzles you can try to solve. And I kept finding those, but I couldn't figure out where to go. I ended up having to like look at a guide online that was like, what's the correct order of operations? And I'm like, okay, well, I know I've been here. And eventually I worked my way backwards to it, but like trying to find like a place to go, like, how do I get back here? It's so, because there's no like fast travel. You can only like fast travel within the zone you're in between a couple entrances. And so it's like kind of tough to navigate. So I got a bit lost there. I was like, I wish I stopped like I said I would, because then it's definitely one of those games like, if you just stop and don't play it for a couple days, you're probably gonna be like, what the fuck was I doing? There's no objective list. It's just, you're a monster trying to get the hell out. But anyway, I ended up beating that last night. And then, because I guess there was DLC for it that came out at one point, it's just like a mini little like 30-minute, 40-minute DLC where it's just distilled like all the best bits of the game without the puzzles. So it's like, because you can possess humans at one point, and like you can just use them to like shoot open doors and whatnot. So that's always fun. And just like these nice bits of consolidated bits of like the game. Like, here's all the best stuff from the game, and like this little mini segment on like a different place or whatever. But I mean, it was fun overall. It seems like, I mean, it's a short game, and I feel like if you played it in one setting, like, after work until bed, like that would probably be the best way to play the game. Not play an hour and a half, then play 2 hours and 2 hours. Like, don't do that. Don't, because you'll be like, if you stop at the wrong, like, at least if I stopped when I stopped like between the standard progression, I can just know, because there's like these indicators in the wall that say like, number of how secure is this zone, or how much of it has been breached. And it's like 50%. It's like, okay, clearly you're missing one of the other breaches, and you haven't unlocked the door to the next zone. So it's like, that's the clear sign of progression. But yeah, I wish I had known that I had looped back around to the start and there was no more proper new places to go. I would have saved myself a lot of time. But
even just like putting it down for a little bit and coming back, your mental map is like wiped. So you're like, okay, I should have stopped, like you said, literally in front of a door. That would have told me what I need to do next.
Yeah, and like luckily you move quick, so it's like if you just kind of run around, like you can probably just blindly, like that's how eventually I end up finding some stuff, like, oh, I just blindly run around. But I think one of my favorite things about the game though is that I had a lot of fun with my stream titles, which will end up being the YouTube video titles when I put it up the VODs. But like the first one I did was There's a Monster Inside All of Us, which is a reference to Arcane, line from Silco. He's trying to convince this kid to take some of the shimmer to become a monster. So I thought that was fun. And then my second stream was Carrion, My Wayward Son,
Oh my god.
which I liked. And then the third one was keep calm and carry on, which I thought was great. I was like, I like when there's, because the problem I always have to is like, what the hell do I call the stream? And then what do I put the titles in the videos I put on YouTube? Like, that's the tough part too. At least with Silent Hill, it's like, okay, where am I? Let's explore this prison, or they're trying to build a prison, reference some System of a Down or something. Like, I can kind of call it like I'm getting lost in Labyrinth, or like when I put the video on YouTube, I'm like that damn clock puzzle, and then so it's like a reference to something I get stuck on. Like, but sometimes it's tough to figure out like what the fuck do I call this? Like, but now if I could do a play on the name of the game, I don't
always
do something
default to dad jokes.
Well, it was easy with Carrion because I'm like, okay, it's so simple. Silent Hill, I didn't want to be like, let's make the hills loud, use the mod that gets rid of the fog. But yeah, the Carrion was fun. Like I said, it's only $5 on PSN. I definitely say it's worth it. It's definitely a fun take on that genre. It did also. I didn't look, and maybe I should. It reminded me a lot of the Swapper, but I don't know, like the style and like the movement. It felt a lot like that, like it, because the Swapper is very. I don't know if you played the Swapper, but it's a puzzle game that also it's very kind of not floaty. Okay, so Carrion's by Phobia Games. Who does the Swapper? And this is done by Facepalm Games, Curve Games, and that's the publisher. Who's the creator? Developer. Facepalm, Ollie, and a bunch of other people. But it's like a side-scroller puzzle game that's from like 2013. That's really good. I really like the Swapper. Kind of like a puzzle game with like kind of like a little darker in tone, I guess. It's like you're creating clones of yourself and then killing off those clones to solve puzzles. But I really like the Swapper. But yeah, I like puzzle games. So that's a fun puzzle game. And yeah, this is just like, again, movement so quick, you just go around. And I do like the way that they kind of make you they do puzzles in this where your abilities are kind of based on what size you are. There's like 3 tiers: your base size, medium tier, and large tier. So it's like, for example, there's like a defensive ability. When you're the smallest, you hit L1 and you go invisible for a little bit amount of time. And then when you're medium, you hit L1 and you get like all these like spiky spear claws around you, so you can just like roll through people and do a bunch of damage to them. And then when you're the largest, your L1 is you get like a defensive hardened carapace like skin, and that helps you get through a puzzle where there's like this grenade spear that attaches to you, and that's how you get past and survive. And then there's also like when you're small, there's an ability R1 where like you shoot like a web, essentially kind of like Spider-Man. You can use that in different ways. And then when you're medium, your L1 or your R1 is like you can push through stuff. Like you build up a charge and you launch through, and that's how you break through some of those big wood walls early on. And there's also like these plugs you come across early, and if you're on the correct side of the plug, like the bottom, you can just push it out and unlock it. And then when you're the largest, you have a pool, and there's a lot of plugs you come across that you have to pull out of their socket, and that's how you do that. So it's like, and there's these little pools of like red water, and you could do what they call deposit biomass. So essentially, you're just making yourself smaller, and then you can consume the biomass to get bigger again. So it's like, oh, I need to go invisible. Okay, let's find a pool that I can deposit biomass, so I can use my cloaking ability, get through the puzzle, and then I can go back and get my biomass if I want to be big again. Or it's like you progress further and you can't go back. So I kind of like the way you're like, oh, I have to be the medium tier monster to get through this puzzle. So I kind of like the way they do that. It's kind of fun. But yeah, overall, I had a lot of fun. Like I said, short game. Definitely give it a shot if people want to check it out on PSN. It's fun there. And again, it's also on Switch, so I don't know if it ever goes on sale on Switch, but it's on Switch. And then other than that, I think that's all I had note-wise. I'm trying to think if I double-checked if I have this old note. I meant to do it. It's this note. I don't know how I can explain this on the podcast, but like, because it's like it's more visual. I meant to do it on stream. Because like it was just funny. Like the other day, like I don't know if I'm the only one who does this, but like usually when I fill up my washing machine, like I fill up with the clothes first, and then then get the water, and then detergent, whatever, yada yada. But I usually do the clothes first. But the other day, it was like a while ago. I was doing it, like had half clothes, and I was gonna run it. I started running it, but I was like, you know what? Let's fill up some other clothes, some other stuff, and they're throwing there. And usually, I tend not to like mixing too much of like my wife's stuff, my stuff, and the kids' stuff, because then it makes sorting it a pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
I try to keep like just kids or just mine and the kids, and then just the wives, so it's a little easier to keep separated. But I was like, you know what? Let's throw some of the kids stuff in there too. You know, because I was like, oh, the toddler needs some of his pants, yada yada. So because it's filling up with water, I don't stop. I just let it fill, and then, but it's doing that. So now the clothes that are in there start rising up. So in order to put new clothes in, I have to, you know, put the clothes on and then push them down under the surface of the water. That way, you know, they get soaked right away. Because otherwise, if you just close the lid, it like takes forever for the spin cycle to actually, or the wash cycle to get them fully wet. So I'll push them down. So then I got a drippy hand with, you know, detergent and soap. And so when I take it out, I like, you know, fling it off into the washing machine, and then I kind of hold my arm up at like 90 degrees, and my hand's kind of in like a fist. That way, the water just drips into my palm, and if it goes down my arm, whatever's left, it goes just down my forearm, and I don't drop it on the floor. So I did this. I'm like, okay, I'll go, because the bathroom's right there. So I'm like, I push down all the clothes, and then I hear my kid yell for me, because he's home. And so I get up, and I'm on my way to go wash my hands because the bathroom's right next to his room. So I open up his door, and I'm standing there, and I'll go, did you say something? But I'm standing there holding my arm up like I'm almost like in like a flexing bicep kind of pose. So I got like this fist in the air, like I'm threatening to hit the kid or something.
No!
Because I don't want the water, like it's not a fully clenched fist, but like it's how it looks because I don't want the water to drip on the floor with the detergent. And I'm like, say something? And it just looks like I'm
God.
And so it just looked like he didn't get panicked or anything. He's like, no, I didn't say anything. I was talking to someone else. I'm like, okay. And after I washed my hand, I realized, oh, that probably looked like I was like, what? Talking to daddy? Little shit.
He's like, no, I didn't say anything. Okay, bye,
anything,
Mom.
I'll get my notes. Yeah, but I thought it was just really funny. I gotta get rid of that note. Get it out there. But yeah, I don't have any other notes. Man, it's so annoying. There's so many times, like even this morning, I was like, oh, I want to bring that up like in conversation, not even on the podcast, just like with the group in general.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like, oh, I'll remember it. It's easy. And then we start talking earlier, and I was like, fuck, I forgot whatever it was that I wanted to talk about.
And never ever rely on remembering anything.
Yeah, it's usually I'll try to remember. I will take notes on some things. Sometimes like I have like a notepad on my computer while I'll put notes on, and I usually put the notes in my phone. But I didn't have my phone with me. I was like, oh, I'll just remember it. But anyway,
narrator voice. He did not remember.
He did not remember. That's right. But yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and call it there. Luckily, we actually got to go for quite a bit, despite the fact there wasn't a whole lot of news. I guess it talked a lot about Silent Hill and Mother and what we were playing, which is usually the more exciting part of the podcast, anyways. Shame Izzy wasn't here, but we'll talk about more about Silent Hill probably next week as well when he gets back. And then I just got to figure out what the hell I want to play. I was like, I wish the Tomb Raider games are out now. The next ones, the trilogy 4, 5, and 6, so I could play that. But I'm like, I'm like not in the mood to play too much else that I've got. I know that the Control DLC did come out, and I haven't played the Lake House. And it's interesting. I guess if you do a New Game Plus in that, or even I think just a new game in general, they've somehow integrated the DLC into the main game to be like, hey, this would be actually a really good spot to play the DLC if you want. Which I thought was really interesting. That's what someone was saying on a podcast I was listening to. I was like, that's curious. Because I've seen that happen like Deus Ex Human Revolution did that, where like there's a section in that game where Adam Jensen goes on a boat to go somewhere. Like he leaves Detroit on a boat, I think, and then like he goes to the island where the end of the game takes place. But there's a DLC that came out that takes place on the boat. It's like, yeah, why would he just hide on a boat and you're just asleep the whole time? It's quite a long trip to get there. And that this is the DLC, takes place on the boat, you find out some more stuff, yada yada, then you get there. So it's like when you play the game after the DLC came out, you could, if you want, get to that boat part, then do the DLC, and then get to the end of the game. Like that makes sense. Like play it in that kind of order. But it's weird because I don't hear about that happening too much, and I'm curious how they get in the first one, because the first one's like, hey, it's the Night Springs DLC, which is like a fictional show within the universe. So I'm like, how do they integrate that? And I'm really curious about the Lake House, because that's more like Control focused and not necessarily Alan Wake focused. So I wonder like how they transition from the main characters in Alan Wake to, you know, how do they go from Saga, Anderson, and Alan to be like, okay, go play as this person from the Federal Bureau of Control. Like I wonder how that happens. But I do have those to play, and I hear the unique monster from the next DLC sounds like a lot of fun. And I really was hoping that I should have picked up the Phantom Liberty DLC for Cyberpunk way back when it was on sale on PlayStation, because like was like, oh, I should play that, but it wasn't on sale. I was like, damn it. Why didn't I pick this up the multiple times it was on sale? Because I'm definitely going to play it at some point. And I have it on PS5. So I got to do that because I would like to play that. I wanted to play, like, I got to play a shooting game somewhere I can just have some fun, turn my brain off a bit, and shoot some stuff. But anyways, all right, we'll go ahead and call it there. And yeah, thank you all for tuning and listening. Thank you, Zai, for joining. And we will see you all next time.
Bye.